Here's what's new in version 6.6. This update is being released Monday morning because of a security policy that is going into effect either Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning from Run Signup. And so this update is a required update if you're going to want to use Run Signup with the software. And of course, most of my users, I believe, do, especially if you're here in the USA, where I believe Run Signup has at least 50% of the market share of all races are on Run Signup. So, when they push an update out, I need to move and get it out to you guys as fast as possible. So that's what's going on here. But I didn't want to just include only that. I wanted to make sure I give you something that you're excited about, something that makes your job easier. I've over the past couple years, I've gone through each screen and try to think: is there a way I can make this easier? Is there a way I could design this in a way that helps prevent any kind of catastrophe? And so I wanted to explain what I've done with the timing screen, which I think is another big step forward on making sure that you see exactly what's going on, and there's no way or much smaller chance that you can have a problem on race day. So let's go ahead and look at the timing screen. Before I pull it up, though, I want to explain one thing that you can kind of see the reasoning behind some of the changes here. So if you're a brand new user, imagine that you've gone through and you've programmed your tags, or you've opened up some of the screens and you're playing with them, and you see that if I pull up any one of the luxury extra features here, the quick results TV or the results kiosk or the tag check, or if I click on program RFID tags, you'll see that the software instantly connects to the reader, gives you instant feedback that it's doing something. For example, let me present some more tags. You'll see that those tags appear, and so they get used to that action, and the first time they go to time a real race, they pull up the timing screen and it does not connect to the reader immediately. Now that was done, on purpose. That was done strategically. Like, I don't want someone to pull up the timing screen and then immediately pick up finishers when people are actually starting the race. Now, of course, if the starting line and finish line are the exact same location, typically I go ahead and capture chip starts. But there's some situations where maybe the race starts and they run near or through the finish line to get actually out on the course. And so, on purpose, I didn't want the timing screen to connect to the reader and accept reads immediately. I wanted you to tell the system you are ready for the reader to be listening and to send those reads back to the timing screen. But again, most users got that, but there were some cases where a user would start the race and they would forget to click on capture chip start, or let's say they did capture the chip starts and they would forget to uncheck capture chip start so that the software knows, okay, starters are done, let me listen for finishers. And so this update, I tried to clean that up. And so let's go ahead and look at the changes. So if I click on time race, you'll see that just like normal, it's going to ask you which races are pulled. You want in. In most cases, you're going to pull all races in. And I'm going to click on continue. And you'll see that the moment I pull up the timing screen, it connects to the reader. It gives you instant feedback that the activity indicator is flashing, or at least stays green, letting you know, hey, tags are in the area, or tags are being picked up. And so there's no longer a start listening button. There's no longer a button that says capture chip start. There's no longer an auto finish gap option up here. All of those options, besides the start listening, which occurs immediately, um, all tag reads are being ignored until you tell the software I'm capturing chip starts, and until you start one of the races. Now, of course, if you're not capturing chip starts, all you have to do is click start, and whenever you're ready for finishers, all you got to do is click on capture chip finish. And so now the end goal should be that all of your races at some point turn green, letting you know, hey, they're green, which means when the reads come in, they're going straight to the, as either a split time if you're capturing multi, lap races, or it's coming in as finishing times. And so let's go ahead and start this race. And you'll see that yellow, as you see up here, says capture chip starts. Red means I'm ignoring reads. So even if I start the race here, the 10K, if any reads occur right now, let's say if I present some tags, if any reads occur for the 10K, they're going to be ignored. And so that's not what you want in most cases. That's why it shows up in red here. And so if you have a situation where you're going to capture chip starts and chip finishes, then you can check both off, and then the auto finish gap becomes enabled. Now, if you're not sure what that is, click on the little question mark button. Basically what that is let's say John Doe runs through the starting line, and if he has not been picked up, if he's been picked up once, but he's not picked up again until after the gap time, which in this case is 10 minutes, now, the software, by the way, sets the gap time for you automatically based on the distance with a maximum of 10 minutes. If you need longer than that, just use the arrows or type it in. But that gap time represents, okay, if I haven't seen John Doe in over 10 minutes, assume that he's actually finishing next time he comes through. Now, again, even when I'm doing races like this, which is very rare, but when those do happen, when I know the very last finisher has come through, I'll go ahead and, oh, sorry, when I know the very last starter has gone through, I'll go ahead and uncheck capture chip starts so that the system knows that anybody new coming through the read zone is a finisher. That way, if someone somehow was missed at the starting line, it's not going to pick them up when they finish and assumed, hey, it's the first time I've seen you. You must have just started. And so the reason why I said all that is because in most cases you're going to want all races to be green. And so after you're done capturing chip start, you can either go straight to check this, or you can uncheck that. Either one doesn't matter as long as a race is green. And so that's a new change that I think is going to help new users, but also existing users to make sure that, okay, hey, I'm not going to have to worry about the reader connecting right before the race. It's, because some timers would wait until right when the race starts and then click start listening and then cross our fingers and pray, hope everything connects. Now you get that instant feedback. Hey, we're all good. We can start whenever. And then again, you want all your races to be green. Now I did make some changes to the actual processing of the tag reads. Let me go and start this race 2. I've got a whole bunch of tags over to my left. I just pulled up a random race here that's on my computer. And all these tags, they're just loose tags. They're not assigned any bibs. And so, or at least not attached to any bibs. So I'm going to scan a bunch of tags so you can see that. But one thing I've done is I've also improved kind of the efficiency of how it's handling the tag reads and how some of the stuff is going on in the background. So even though the software is still going to warn you if your computer doesn't have the minimum recommended specs. Now, again, just because it doesn't have the minimum doesn't mean you can't use it. It just says, hey, if you're timing a very large race with a computer with only 4 gigs or 8 gigs of RAM, and maybe it's an older computer, you might see some lagging or some freezing. Well, with some of the changes I've done with this update, I think that's going to be improved. So we're going to flood a whole bunch of tag reads through right now. This computer again, in fact, I'll pull up a second screen so you can see it. Well, I can actually pull it up here. So if you let's go to program settings. Again, this has got now it is an 8-core reader, 8 cores, so that's good. You actually want at least a quad core or 4-core laptop, but it's only got 8 gigs of RAM. And so if I were to flood a whole bunch of tags through, let's go and do that quickly. Again, I have no idea what these are programmed to. Let me just scan these. And then some of these. And I got some of these. You'll see that there should not be any lagging. Here's some more. And I've got one last batch here, I think. Yeah, so that's all the tags. So that was, a few hundred reads within a minute or 30 seconds or whatever that was. And again, most of them are not assigned to anyone. But so you should see no more lagging or problems there. I still would recommend getting especially for your primary timing laptop that your business is depending on, try to get a newer laptop. Most laptops nowadays have at least 4 cores. Most of them have at least 16 gigs of RAM, and that's the minimum specs. So, but there's also other cosmetic changes in here that I've done. In the Action Keys tab, I've actually added instructions and tips. I'm encouraging all new users, or maybe if you're an existing user and want a refresher, this is kind of my read through this at least once kind of thing. Like, hey, here's prior to the start, do this. If you're doing a gun start race, here's kind of some things to know. And so I would recommend reading through that. I also move some of the instructions up here, and on the athletes tab, I think there's different instructions kind of letting you know, hey, you can right click here and do certain actions or whatever. And so that's the big change for this update, is that instead of having global settings that apply to all races, you can actually have some races that are doing a chip start for while you're doing a chip finish for other races. And so now that's provides more flexibility there. Again, the color coding I think is going to help a lot. So yeah, that's the main improvements to the timing screen. I just thought of another benefit for this feature that might be handy. Let's pretend like this is a cross-country race and you've got junior boys, junior girls, and senior boys and senior girls. And so if with a lot of these cross-country races, you're going to have a certain number of kids that the coach put in the roster, but they actually never showed up for the race. And so while you're timing the later races, sometimes the coaches walk over with all the bibs that were not used and try to hand them to you at the finish line, which of course the software, if you got the reader going, is going to pick them up as finishers in that moment. And so in the past, before this update, when that race was over, I would click on the clock and do finish race, and then tell the software, hey, that race is done. If any more tags get picked up for that race, just ignore them. Well, with this update, you could, instead of doing that, which you can still do that, but instead of doing that, if you wanted to, because the only problem with that is, let's say that you discover, oh crap, here comes a junior boy, even though I thought that race is over. Well, if that race was finished, you could undo finish and then get the clock going, and it'll accept that read if you catch them beforehand. Or the problem is you don't usually see that till they're in the chute coming through, and so you know at that point the clock has been stopped, and you don't know what time he actually came through unless you undo finish and then try to estimate when he came through. But now you can simply uncheck capture chip finish and leave that clock running if you want. So the red will indicate that race is not accepting reads, but you can still see the clock time whenever the kid comes through. So you can document it, or of course, if you see the kid coming, just simply check it again, and that way he can. Oops, let me check that again. So you can check it. He comes through, and you can simply uncheck it, and that way it lets the system know if any other tags get picked up. Again, maybe by a coach bringing the tags over, then it will ignore them. Another change in this on the timing screen is under the action keys, I removed the checkbox that says auto copy. And the reason why is because I had some users that would set up maybe the results TV, or they would set up the results kiosk, or they would set up some feature that required, or at least was assuming that the main timing computer was pushing a copy of the database out to a shared folder at which those computers would see, update themselves, and then reload new results or whatever. Well, the issue is that a brand new user or someone that's new setting up that feature, they would not realize that they'd have to click on the auto copy option in order for the main timing computer to push that update out. And so after thinking about it, and of course, when I added that feature in, just like you see all these features up here at the top, I try to add a way in to turn it off, because what if there's a problem of some kind? I want to make sure that while you're timing, you could easily toggle something and get things going. But over the many years of people using these features, there's not been a single occurrence of a problem with the main timing computer pushing a copy out to the backup path. Again, the software is smart enough to know that if that path's not available, it won't even try. Of course, it checks periodically, very frequently, in fact. But I have not seen any issues. And so basically now, if you have a backup path set in the settings screen, which is here, then the software will just automatically push the copy out. So the auto copy feature has been removed, hopefully making it more reliable or easier to set up the results kiosk and other features without having to hope that it's going to work on race day because you've maybe forgot to check some box or something. So so that's another improvement on the timing screen. Another change with this update you need to be aware of is whenever you interact with Run Signup the very first time, whether that be through create race from account Run Signup, or whether it be pulling up a race that's already linked to Run Signup and you hitting the sync button to pull participants in, or any other method. There's lots of ways the software interacts with Run Signup. The very first time you do it on each computer you own, it's going to ask you to authorize access for the timing software to interact with Run Signup. You only have to do this once. I have not seen a case where on the same computer it's asking me to do it more than once. It could be that after a year or two, it may have to reauthorize, but so far the software is designed in a way to where in the background it should keep it refreshed and constantly authorized, especially if you use Run Signup frequently, which a lot of my users do. So but anyways, just be aware that the very first time that you try to interact with Run Signup, you're going to see this message. Just click authorize, and then you should be brought to a screen inside the same browser window that says ART login successful. You can now close this screen. And from that point forward, you can use Run Signup the same as you've always used it. So if I click on create race from account, Run Signup should pull the races right up. In fact, while I get this screen open, I will say I've cleaned up how the race names appear, so it shouldn't be as long. Because I had some that were, depending on how the sub event was set up, it would duplicate the name multiple times. For example, they set this one up in a way that is kind of almost unavoidable. So this was the full event name, but then they called each sub event like this. So that's kind of long, but in the past, these were actually a lot longer. And so I've streamlined, cleaned that up a little bit. I've also made it to where the races sort in date order, because I think it was sorting. It had no sort order before, so I think it was sorting by race name or something. And so by default, I found myself coming in here and clicking on the date column to sort it for me, and then I could easily find the races I wanted. And so, but anyway, so that's been cleaned up. But I just wanted to mention that the very first time you log in to Run Signup or try to use it, you're going to see that authorized message, and you no longer have to enter your credentials into the settings screen.